Hello, good morning. I wish you a happy weekend. More often than not, we get involved in other people's fights. We actually take sides for diverse reasons. I have about four reasons here. They're not limited to these ones, but I just want to limit myself to these four reasons. It could be that you are protecting somebody from harm. You could be supporting a friend or a loved one. If you believe in the justice of someone's cause, if you have moral values that make you stand up for what you believe is right, even if it means taking on another person's fight. Like I said before, not limited to this, but let me just limit myself to these four reasons. My name is Christy, and I welcome you to my channel. Thank you for spending time with me. Oh, yes. So, what does it mean to take on someone else's fight? Of course, I looked it up and it stated that it can mean physically intervening in a fight, supporting someone in a conflict, or even engaging in a verbal dispute on their behalf. Again, it stated that it involves stepping into a conflict that is not your own, potentially causing harm to yourself and the people involved. Yes, I very well know that some people render this service of taking on other people's fights. They get paid to provide this service, the service of taking on somebody else's fight. That is the service they render, and they get paid for it. You can call them professional um, conflicts, fights, takeovers. I don't know how to put that. For instance, bouncers, bodyguards, lackeys, mercenaries, and so on and so forth. These ones, they actually render this service to take on other people's conflicts to ensure that their clients are put in a very comfortable situation. They take on the conflicts, the rough side of misunderstanding and stuff. Okay, however, my interest in this video is on a regular third party, a fellow who just takes on or takes over a quarrel, a fight, or misunderstanding of another person against an individual who she did not have issues with hitherto. She just decided to side with one against the other, started to show detestable behavior towards the one she stood against. So it's different from somebody getting paid, rendering service of taking on somebody's conflict, somebody's fight. This one that I'm interested in is a regular person who just on her own decides to side with one against the other, not necessarily getting paid for it. Yes, that is my area of interest because more often than not, we multiply toxicity by doing this more often than not, especially if it's not strategic. We just multiply toxicity, which ought not to be. Let me just paint a scenario to make my point clearer. There is a Dayo and a Kunle friends, and Dayo and Kunle, like I said, friends, they had this misunderstanding, let's say fight, and he was getting protected. What happened? Dayo borrowed some money from Kunle and he will not just pay back. Ah, and it was getting out of hand. Kule kept asking, and Dayo would always come up with one excuse or the other. Somehow, Taiwo got to know about this situation and sided with Kunle and became extremely nasty to Dayo. Of course, Dayo is the borrower that is reluctant to pay back the money he had borrowed from Kunle. So Taiwo sided with Kunle well and became very nasty to Dayo. Along the line, Dayo repented and paid Kunle the money he borrowed from him. So they made up. So how would Taiwo make up with Dayo? And what would be the storyline? What would be the bone of contention? What would they be resolving? It's difficult. It's difficult. It would have been okay for Taiwo to intervene and not necessarily taking side to the extent of being nasty, terrible towards Dayo. If Taiwo had intervened and tried to resolve the matter without necessarily being nasty to Dayo, it would have just smoothed over. There would not have been any problem of Taiwo now wanting to get back and be friends with Dayo. You know, but he had created a kind of bad blood between himself and Dayo, a matter that ought not to be. And this is what I'm saying. That when you are intervening in somebody else's conflict, fight, misunderstanding, the primary focus is to try to resolve whatever issue, not to take sides to the extent that when they eventually make up, you will now be having issues with the person you were nasty to, even both of them, if you're not careful. So we have to be extremely careful. Let us be reasonable. We should stop owning other people's fights. Of course, like I said, you can intervene to resolve the matter. Multiplying toxicity, it is not the way to go. It's a no-no. I hope we're going to be sensitive enough to back off any situation we cannot improve upon. Yes, if you cannot improve upon the situation, why don't you just back off? Don't make it worse. Don't create enemies for yourself. So I don't know how Taiwo is going to do this. And unfortunately, Taiwos, because there are many of Taiwos around, they could now either pretend that they did not act in a distasteful manner towards Dayo and try to just make it look like business as usual. If Dayo rebuffed him, of course, that's a possible reaction from Dayo. Taiwo could now start his own fight, his own quarrel with Dayo. All these are unnecessary and could have been avoided, like I said, if Tayo had behaved reasonably from the beginning. Or could Tayo, I'm just pondering on that, could Tayo have had issues with Tayo and simply hid under his quarrel with Kunle to launch his attack? Could it be? Please don't hide behind other people's quarrel. If you have issues with somebody, Discuss with that person. If the issues can be resolved, fine. If not, at least you know that that is the storyline, that is the bone of contention. Don't hide behind other people's fight to get back at someone. My point here is, as much as possible, do not multiply toxicity. Thank you very much for listening to me. I hope to see you very soon. Please, if you have diverse views, opinions, or contrary to what I've just said, please put them in the comment section. We learn every day. Thank you very much. Bye.